Welcome, I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. From our BizVision studios in the UK, you're watching the BVTV Today's Leader channel. Now, as many of you will know, we are fully committed here at BizVision to the conscious agenda, and especially proud of our conscious leadership program. Our firm belief is that today's leader is different than yesteryear's. Today's leader works hard at learning and living and understanding that is in keeping with this new and altered world. Now, one of those key areas in which a leader needs to excel is compassion. To many hardened leaders, it's not something that comes easy to them, but it's an essential ability. Today, I'm delighted to be taking you on a very special journey with my guest to help you more clearly understand the power of compassion. But first, let me introduce you to the author of Compassion Heals. Welcome, Lee Tomlinson.
Good morning, Malcolm. Oh, make that it's morning where I'm at in Palm Springs, California. Good evening in England.
Yes. Look, you've already just been taking the rise out of me about it's cold and damp here in England. And it's, what is it in Palm Springs?
It's going to be 89 degrees, crystal clear, gorgeous, slight breeze blowing. Eat your heart out, Malcolm.
Don't you worry. I've told you, we're getting summer on Thursday.
Yeah,
just on Thursday.
Keep believing that, Malcolm. Keep believing that.
Yeah, just on Thursday, mind. Lee, thanks for kindly coming to guest on BBTV, especially on our flagship channel, Today's Leader. Yours is both a special and an inspirational story. And whilst it's around healthcare, I suggest that today's leaders of all types and sectors need to both take it on board and live it in their own way. Yeah. In this talk show, I'll be chatting to Lee in three parts. First part, we'll talk about why compassion matters and how, as he says, it heals. In part two, we'll talk about what holds people back from being compassionate. And in part three, I'm asking him how leaders should go about playing a compassionate role in this world to the benefit of themselves, their people, and their businesses. But firstly, can you give us a brief introduction to who is Lee Tomlinson and why you got this passion for compassion?
Yeah, it is as far away from where I thought I would be at this point in my life as I could humanly possibly imagine. I've been a professional athlete and played in a little tournament called Wimbledon in your country.
It's coming up soon. Yes,
exactly. And I can't wait to see it. It's about time. And I've traveled the world as an international businessman. I've been a award-winning television producer in the United States for CBS and the American Film Institute. We bought a very famous studio in Hollywood and then built another one in Albuquerque. So trust me, compassion was not a word that I spent much time thinking about growing up at all. I can promise you that. I had no idea. Yeah. Not too many years ago, on June 23rd, 2012, I went in to see my doctor to get some allergy pills and walked out with a diagnosis of stage 3, stage 4 throat cancer.
Wow.
Now, never drank, never smoked, I was a marathon runner, professional. This was not possible, but it was true. And it was right at the base of my tongue. The very next day, as serious as it was, I started treatment. And I went to see my oncologist at Beverly Hills Cancer Center. And they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do surgery. Then we're going to do chemo. Then we're going to do radiation. But the problem is, they told me the day after I got the news that I had a near fatal and possibly fatal cancer, we're probably, because it's at the base of your tongue, going to have to remove a significant portion, if not all of your tongue, which will leave you unable to speak.
Wow.
Now, I'm in Hollywood. I'm a Hollywood guy. And, if you can't talk, you can't work. So I said, guys, that's not an option. We're not doing that. What else have you got for me? And they looked at each other, but we need to do that. I said, we're not doing it. I'm already dead if you do that. They said, all right, well, we're going to give you as much chemo and radiation as we humanly possibly can. And if it doesn't kill you, they literally said, maybe it will work and we can avoid surgery. So that's what we did. I had 3 months straight of chemo, followed by 35 straight days of radiation blasts to the base of my tongue. And at the end of my treatment, I lost 60 pounds, lost my abilities to speak with any strength, was in excruciating pain, had sores all over my mouth. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say my pain was a 12 and a half.
Right.
I had unlimited amounts of fentanyl patches. I can't speak for you when you're sick or ill or hurt, but I'm a jerk. So I hadn't worked. I was running up huge debt. I was a jerk to my wife of 30 years. My life was a mess. And then I ended up, when things couldn't get any worse, in the hospital, unconscious, with an unidentifiable septic infection at the site of my port. So now I got all these things going on in my life, which are a disaster. I'm dying from cancer. I'm absolutely miserable, taking unlimited amounts of fentanyl patches. And now I'm dying from an infection they can't even identify. If there ever was a time I could have used some simple human kindness, it was in that hospital, and I got zero.
Never.
Zero. They treated me like the aging white male in 2212 with advanced throat cancer and an unidentifiable infection. I was not Lee Tomlinson, studio executive producer. No, I was just a piece of trash. And I discovered that, to my dismay, that when the people whose hands we put our lives in treat us with such disdain, we believe that we must be the problem. And I believe that since they thought I was trash, that I was, and that the world would be better off without me. And I decided to end my life by putting on fentanyl patches, go to sleep, and leave my family with an enormous Keyman life insurance policy payout from the studio. And that's what I was going to do. I didn't tell anybody except for one person, a doctor friend who came to visit the day after I got out of the hospital, and sat down with me. And I decided he was the one I was going to ask how many fentanyl patches. So it didn't look like suicide. It literally looked like an accident.
Yeah.
So he came in. I told him all the things, horrible things I'd experienced during my stay. I told him how depressed I was. And just before I was ready to say, and I'm going to do myself in, he said, Lee, let me stop you for a second. Sat down, put his hand on my arm and said, Lee, I just need to apologize for the lack of compassion you received during your stay here. And to tell you it's despicable. I'm so ashamed that you had this experience. It's deplorable. He said, but it's happening more and more and more in healthcare. Less compassion is being given to patients and providers. And it's killing people, literally. He said, how about this? How about you fight and live? And if you do, how about you spend the rest of your life, start a movement or something to see if you can't return the rapidly disappearing presence of healing compassion to medicine, and see if you can't become part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And in that moment that he said that this great doctor, this legend, believed in me, that I could do something for somebody else, for these people who saved my life countless times over my lifetime, gave me hope, gave me value, gave me the will to fight. And it's why I'm alive today. So in that moment, I didn't know what compassion really was. I knew what I didn't get, but I didn't. So I started studying it. And I discovered, to my absolute amazement, that simple human kindness has the ability to majorly heal illness, relieve pain, give the best outcomes in the shortest period of time, and maintain health for much longer than normal. Now, with all of those benefits, the best part is for the provider. They get the exact same thing. So when someone is kind to me, it has all of those mental, physical, and emotional benefits. But the person who gives it to me has the exact same benefits. So that's when I discovered that compassion is considered essential by the World Health Organization. Essential, not optional, for the best possible outcomes in the shortest period of time with the longest lasting impact.
Lee,
And it's
this
disappearing.
It's a fascinating story. We're going to explore further in our interview, but at this stage, I just want to lay my cards on the table and say that I'm passionate about our NHS. We have the most fantastic service here in the UK, which is free at the point of need. And yes. Recently, for a number of reasons, heart and so on, I've been a guest of the NHS, and I could not praise them more. It makes me wonder if sometimes money is at it all. At the heart of it. Let's get the money out of a patient.
Yes. I think that it's two things. And certainly these days, and that is exactly what Dr. Edel was referring to, is in the United States, medicine has become a business.
Yeah.
For businesses, not for the individuals in it, not for the majority of doctors and nurses, but it's become a business, and it's become rapidity and repetition to get as many patients through in the course of a day. And so the emphasis on compassion has gone dramatically, and only 50% of Americans today, only half of all patients believe that they experience any compassion whatsoever in the course of their treatment. Only 50%. That means half of all patients here are receiving, only half of them are receiving the compassion they need. That's a necessity for the best possible outcome. Now, why is that? Well, number one, when you have business running healthcare, it's about let's do more, let's do more. And so the time that you get to spend with a patient is less. Now, compassion only takes a moment. A simple smile, a simple touch. It doesn't take long, but it takes focus. And when you're rushing, that's very hard to focus on your patients. And secondly, as a result of that, 60% of healthcare workers in America today burn out. Burn out. And when you're burned out, one of the characteristics is emotional numbness or detachment, because you're in such pain. You work and you work and you work and you work and you work to get all these people and see them every day, and life and death. And I mean, who can live through that and not be stressed? Well, doctors and nurses and everybody else in healthcare don't take care of themselves enough, and so they burn out. They're just such givers. So between the systemic problem of simple multitudes of people having to be seen in a day and the workload that is for the providers who care for patients, and a lack of intuitive self-care, our healthcare workers today are suffering horribly. And as a result of their numbness and their burnout, we suffer as patients, and it's killing us. And it almost killed me.
Yeah, I think this is so fascinating because this brings us back to culture, doesn't it? The culture of the organization, the culture of the business. It's all about the books or the money or whatever you want to call it. And I know that that happens a little bit in the NHS when senior management sets targets for people. You will see them in 18 minutes or 14 weeks or whatever it may be. It puts real pressure upon people because the Hippocratic Oath and all of that surrounds healthcare, people actually believe it and live it. And sometimes there's a bit of a leadership problem. Look, Lee, let's jump straight into part one. Why does compassion matter amongst all the other things that we've got to contend with in this world at the moment? And how, as you say, does compassion heal?
Well, it does actually. I mean, there is a book that was published about 1.5 years ago called Compassionomics by Dr. Treziak and Mazzarelli. And what they did was there's research scientists and MDs, ER MDs, and they decided to review every piece of literature, every single study on compassion to find out whether or not it was simply just a nice thing to do, or whether it had real, measurable, and significant medical benefits for the patient or not. And they went into that work, which was 2.5 years in the making, convinced that it was a nice thing to do, but no big deal. By the time they had finished their studies, they had gone a full 180 degrees in the other direction, and now absolutely agree that all those studies say that providing compassion for your patients is essential, mandatory, without doubt, for the best possible outcome in the shortest period of time and the longest lasting health. So that's, and it's also true for the giver. So, it has been scientifically proven to be necessary for the best possible outcomes. So whether you're in the hospital or whether you're on the street, it's not just for patients that need compassion. Everybody is fighting a great battle. Everybody has pain of one type or another. Everybody could use the healing balm of compassion. There's a story I read once about a fellow who wrote a suicide note. And on it, he said, I'm going to walk to the bridge and I'm going to jump. Unless one person makes eye contact with me on my walk there. They found his body in the bay. Nobody made eye contact with him. It is as simple as that. When we get that separated from our fellow human beings and we are genetically formed, we must have connection to survive. When we don't get it, the worst can happen. So it's a matter of, no matter who you are, no matter whether you're in healthcare or otherwise, unless we want the world to stay in a very, fighting sort of way, our normal way is to join together to help each other. We need to get back to our roots. We need to see the pain of another, and we need to do whatever we can do to relieve it. And hopefully people will do the same, which compassion has proved is true. If I'm good to you, you'll be good to me.
Yeah.
It sounds simple. It's hard, or we'd be doing it already.
Yes.
But we need to in these fractious times.
Yeah. We'll just close part one there, but I just summarized that in my mind, that today's leader, the number one skill is compassion. People from remote working, hybrid working, whatever it may be, and all the loss that's occurred with relatives that haven't been able to cuddle, like I was telling you about our grandchildren beforehand, the weddings, the funerals that are being missed, all of that demands a leader to be compassionate. Just before we move to part two, though, Lee, I'd like to remind viewers and listeners of your website URL, which is very simple, isn't it? It's
clever, right?
Yeah, LeeTomlinson.com. Now, let me just spell that out for listeners, because
Thank you.
In the UK we put an H in Tomlinson.
I know.
Sometimes, yeah. So it's
shame on you.
Yes, but Lee, L-E-E, and Tomlinson is Tomlinson, LeeTomlinson.com. But of course, viewers, you can see it on the screen behind me. And you can also see on the screen the book cover. Lee, give us a brief summary of the book and why everyone needs to not just have it on their bookshelf, but to read it and absorb it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Being compassionate and experience compassion are essential to our well-being. Babies that are born and not touched by humans and cuddled literally shrivel and die. The book is a retelling of my cancer experience, how I came to discover I had cancer, my treatment, my hospital from hell experience, the impact that had on me mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and physically, my desire to end my life as a result of that cruel and inhumane and lacking in compassion treatment. And then the miracle of that interaction, that loving interaction by my doctor friend, and then my studies to discover the immense value of compassion, not only for the giver, not only for the receiver, but in a business circumstance, the most successful businesses on the face of the planet are run by people, leaders who realize their job is to make the job more doable for their employees, to be servants to their employees. And the only way you can do that is if you get and express the fact that you understand the pain of your employees in every level, and you're there to do whatever you can do to make their life better. And if you do that and they get that, they will work tirelessly for you. It's not money. Money is number 8 on a list of what employees want most. Most what they want is to be seen, heard, and appreciated. If you can give those 3 things to your people, they will be compassionately treated, and they will respond until they're exhausted. They will do anything and everything for both of your benefits.
Seen, heard, and appreciated. Seen, heard, and appreciated. Get it into your brain, yes? Hammer it in.
It's simple, but how many people have bosses like that? It's a rare, people don't, they are naturally compassionate. But here's the deal about compassion is you have to look deeply inside, find out what pains you, and never take it out on anybody else, particularly your employees. So if you're in a cranky mood, when you get to the office in the morning and you take it out on your patients, if you're a doctor, it's patients, on your employees, they're going to suffer for something they didn't even do. And when they suffer, people who are suffering are angry. They'll take it out on you. They'll take it out on your customers. They'll take it out on their families and everybody else. So your job as a boss is to love and care about your people enough to make sure their needs in the job are met and to be there for them to make their job as easy as possible, regardless of how difficult it is. You're there to help them. And that power you give them, that's compassion.
Brilliant. Simple question, though, in part 2, Lee. But I bet it's got lots of answers and nuances. What holds people back from being compassionate?
Their own pain. It's really simple. It's their own pain. To be compassionate, we need to go deep inside ourselves, find out what pains us, and remove it, and end it, and stop it within ourselves, to heal it within ourselves, to do whatever it takes to heal that. Once we love ourselves enough to give ourselves compassion, then we can open up to other people and be compassionate to them. So it starts with healing ourselves. In healthcare, with 60% of healthcare workers burned out because they don't take care of themselves enough, their own health, they've got to sit down and say, I'm killing my patients when I'm burned out. I need to take better care of myself first. And when I'm healthy, that's when I can be the most effective healer, whether I'm in healthcare or any other business on the face of the planet. So step number 1, heal your own hurts.
Right.
And when you're aware of them, make sure you don't take them out on others.
Now, can I just ask there, just as we're talking that, it seems to me, though, that it's almost like a cog effect. There's the old saying of the fish stinks from the head downwards.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
And if you're in the middle there and you're trying to be compassionate downwards, but upwards, you're not getting the compassion. It must be hard to achieve, though, surely.
Well, it's actually impossible. There's only so much abuse someone can take. If someone is being compassionate in a non-compassionate environment, it kills it. I'm going to eventually do what my boss wants, or I'm going to get fired. And if his treatment of me and his suggestion of how I treat my clients is lacking in compassion, I'm going to do, and again, that never works. You want to give great customer service, which is what patient care is in fact customer service. You've got to be aware of your own pain and make sure that you never take it out on anybody else. And in your off time, you make sure that you stay healthy enough, mental, physically, and emotionally, to be able to maintain that with your colleagues and your customers. Both are equally important. Both.
Yeah, true. Big lessons for today's leaders there. Thank you, Lee. Now, just before I do introduce part 3, I just want to talk about dress sense. I put a tie on for you today. I mean, what are you wearing?
Yeah. Well, so much of my original mission, although it has expanded to include all businesses and all people and all customers, but in the very beginning, I've done probably a couple of hundred keynotes around the world to sometimes 4, 5, 6,000 people at one time. And every time I walk out, most of those are healthcare people, I walk out in this patient's gown. And I won't tell you what I wear underneath, but if you go to my website and watch a video, you'll find out, because that's the nature of these gowns. They're embarrassing, they're humiliating. And the point is, I want to remind my audiences that when they see us patients, for the very first moment, we're already humiliated. We're already in great pain. And I don't want them to forget that. So I walk out in this horrible thing every single time with my tush hanging out to remind them that compassion is essential from the moment they come in contact with me until I leave their office and beyond. So that's why I wear my patient's gown. I wore this for much of my cancer treatment. So it is it's an old friend, shall we say.
Yes. I was in hospital a fortnight ago for a procedure, and the nurses said to me as I went into the treatment room, "Oh, come on, Malcolm, let's sort your gown out. You've got it the wrong way around," which is lovely.
But it's all. But see that, even though they were funny about it, which is hilarious, actually.
Yeah.
It's still humiliating. I mean, who in their right mind goes to a doctor's office or a hospital for hats and horns? Anytime I'm in this outfit, you've either hurt me, are going to hurt me, or you're going to prepare me for something that's going to hurt me. So the minute I put this gown on, I'm already miserable.
Yeah.
And
but I
want to remind them of that.
Yeah, but I like to have a bit of repartee with them. So the nurse held up another gown whilst the other one was putting she says, I'll just do this vanity for you there. I said, that's okay. I'm too old to have anything left there. So look, Lee,
that's funny.
Now for part 3, an action time.
Yes.
Action time. How should leaders go about playing a compassionate role in this world to the benefit of themselves, their people, and their business? Let's have an action plan, please.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, is leaders have to realize that they must be compassionate with their people if they want the best results from their people. So it's not a manipulation. It's a simple realization that the more compassionate I am, the better my people will feel, the better they'll express themselves to our customers and their colleagues. And then the better sales we'll have, the better retention we'll have, and the greater profits we will have. It is that simple but hard. Now, how do you go about doing that? Number one, as a leader, take a look at your management style. Are you a servant to your people? Are you there for them when they need you, when they're in pain? Are you recognizing them? Are you acknowledging them? Are you appreciating them and expressing it? Are you avoiding taking your anger and frustration out on them? Are you there for them when they have problems to solve it so they can go back out in the field and do whatever it is you need for them to do to be profitable? So it starts with you. You've got to look at the problems that you're experiencing. You've got to look at your management style and say, am I being a servant to my people? If you are, then you are being compassionate with them, and they will reflect that outwards in every way, manner, shape, or form, and everybody wins. Your customers win, your employees win, you win, your company wins. And I would argue, since compassion is catching, so if I'm compassionate to you, it's been proven scientifically
Yeah.
You are highly likely to be compassionate to someone else, who's highly likely to be compassionate to somebody else. So if what we want to do is improve the quality of life on the planet, particularly at this difficult time when compassion is so rare, the way to start it is by tiny, simple, additional acts of compassion every day. And we do a challenge. We call it the Compassion Heals Challenge. Go to the website and you can sign up to do it. It's simple, but it's amazing how hard it is. All we ask is that you commit in writing to providing one simple, teeny-weeny compassionate act per day for 7 days. One little one a day. That could be, I open the door for somebody. I give $1 to a homeless person. I smile at a stranger. They don't have to be gigantic acts. They just need to be small, continuous acts. Yeah. So if you're willing to actually get better and start a routine, go to my website, leetomlinson.com, sign up for the challenge. And here's the deal. If you're suffering, if you're burned out, give those 7 gifts to yourself to start your healing, because you need to be healed and healthy before you can be fully compassionate and kind and caring to your employees and ultimately to your customers.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love my own little ways of doing things. Whether I'm right or wrong, you might tell me. I love to get the name badge of somebody, say at the checkout counter in the supermarket or the bank, and I was at the bank on Monday and her name was Jane. And afterwards I said, "Thank you, Jane." And she looked at me as though, "How do you know me?" But a smile came on her face.
Yeah, I mean, there's you don't have to send somebody's kids to college. You don't have to pay off their car. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be massive things. Remember that guy who was walking to the bridge?
Yeah.
All he wanted was a tiny connection of a smile, of a glance. That's all it takes. I show a movie in my keynotes. It's a head cam of a fight in Fallujah, a firefight, a gunfight, with soldiers. And they were surrounded and were being decimated, killed and injured. And a fellow, one of our soldiers, gets shot through the neck, obviously serious. The medic, without hesitation and without his helmet, because they were surprised by the firefight, jumps up, runs through the sand, grabs this guy, throws him over his shoulder, runs him over to the helicopter, sets him down to get him evacuated because he's bleeding profusely through the neck. But before he lets him go, he gives him a kiss on the forehead.
Right.
Now, how long did that take?
Nothing.
That long.
Yeah.
And do you think that soldier who was conscious, do you think he's going to remember that kiss? I promise you he'll remember it for the rest of his life. And in that moment, it brought all sorts of physical and emotional reactions that already start to heal that wounded soldier. So compassion doesn't take time. It takes intention. I'm going to be in the next half hour, I'm going to do one kind act. It's amazing how many opportunities you'll see.
And it takes determination as well,
commitment.
Yeah.
Everything takes commitment. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Because it takes conscious intent. That takes commitment. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
No question. But it doesn't take much. That's my point.
Yes.
Is itty bitty little kindnesses. Then other people who get it, they'll give little kindnesses and they'll give. And if we keep those waves going, we literally can reverse the negativity, violence, and hate that's being perpetrated in the world. We can end it. Yes, with little tiny acts of kindness and more and more and more of them. Yes.
Okay. So let me just remind everybody, just as I'm finishing, Lee, there, to pop along to leetomlinson.com and sign up for the challenge. Go on.
Yes.
It's a simple thing to do, isn't it?
Let's make the world a better place. It is simple. It's not easy, but let's do it.
Let's do it together. Yes, we are in a new and altered world. And yes, much has changed. And today's business leader has to be good at new skills such as agility, adaptability, but importantly, compassion. Now, to many, it's not easy to change. The old saying that we learn from stories, though, is true, as I trust you found today listening to the author of Compassion Heals and the inspirational Lee Tomlinson. Thanks, Lee, for a valuable interview.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for the opportunity. It has been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, thank you, thank you.